It's your boy, man, the one and only Ghetto Casper, back at it again with another video, man. Um, I've been putting this off to the side, so I've been procrastinating a lot on this video. I've been telling you guys, whoever been watching my football reactions and stuff like that, I was going to do my top 10 list of this past year's top receivers. I know you guys can probably see all the receivers that I have in this top 10 list. I know you guys will probably wonder or whatever and be like, man, this list, why aren't some certain receivers and some of them not in this list and stuff like that? It's because the receivers that I did not put in this list, yes, I mess with like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and stuff like that, but as a receiver, looking at receivers stuff, they don't compete and like compare with like the catches, the yards, and the touchdowns and stuff like that, and the averages. So I had to go off of an actual receiver mindset and think of like what top receivers in the league should have been on this top 10 list, and that's what I'm going off of. But let me just say it, for honorable mentions, I would put like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and them in that. Probably like AJ Brown from the Titans, because he had an amazing rookie year. There's some other receivers and DJ Moore and stuff like that, I'll put them in like honorable mentions, but they to me are not top 10, even though Devontae Adams and stuff like made Pro Bowl and stuff like that. I'm gonna show you guys, like, I will actually pull up Devontae Adams and stuff for you guys, so you probably can see it, but their stats don't compare to the top receivers that I have on this list. And to me, yeah, for Devontae Adams to be a number one receiver and not be able to hit 1,000 yards this past season and get more than 8 touchdowns, which he only had 5 touchdowns and like 900 yards, is pretty bad to be the number one receiver on the Green Bay Packers, to me, compared to all of these other receivers. I thought about putting Devontae Adams on this list, but I put him off for Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. I put him on the list instead of Devontae Adams. Basically, if you want to say everybody that is up there that you can see on my tabs, you can say it's in order, but at the same time, I'm not actually going to say it's in order, but I know for sure my first 3 people are in order, who are Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, and Julio Jones. But let's get into this list. Number 1, I have Michael Thomas. To me, he is the best receiver in the league just because of production and what he has done in his first couple of seasons in the NFL. I've been in the NFL for like 4 years. So by him being in the NFL for 4 years and be able to break records and stuff like that in the amount of 4 years, and a lot of people say he just catches slants and stuff like that. No, he doesn't. If you look to see how many yards he got off of slants and stuff like that this past season, it was only 200 yards and like 2 touchdowns. He would still be leading the league in receiving yards and stuff like that. So, and I know a lot of people will be like, man, he caught 149 balls. Yeah, but you don't understand if you don't play receiver or have somebody that actually knows how to play receiver and stuff like that. That is pretty impressive to not drop the ball that many times and to catch that many balls. I think they said he had like maybe 300 targets, or maybe less. I don't actually know how many targets he actually had, but for him to catch 149 balls is pretty impressive. To also go with 1,725 yards, and yes, guys, I am also looking at the stats and stuff. That's the main reason I pulled this up, so you guys would know where I am coming from. And also to have 9 touchdowns. Anybody that knows, I am a New Orleans Saints fan, and by me being a New Orleans Saints fan, I will also tell you guys, most of our offensive receivers were hurt, so we didn't have anybody else to basically like throw the ball to besides like Jared Cook. Alvin Kamara, he was out for like 4 games, but then he came back and he was still like playing hurt and stuff like that. But Michael Thomas was like the main person our offense was going through. And people can't say it was because of Drew Brees is the reason he had these stats, because anybody that watched the Saints games knows that at the beginning of the year, Drew Brees was hurt for an amount of like 7 games, and Teddy Bridgewater had to step up, and he was the one who was throwing him the ball. But I'm going to just leave it off here, right here with Michael Thomas. So Michael Thomas is my number 1 receiver in the NFL as of right now. My number 2 receiver in the league is DeAndre Hopkins. At the same time, like I said about Michael Thomas, to be able to catch 100 balls in the NFL consistently without like that many drops is pretty impressive. You have to think of that. Like, targets don't mean anything, because you guys got to think targets, that just means the quarterback is trying to throw it to you, but at the same time the quarterback can throw a lot of bad balls, and that's what the target rate is going to be. Like, you could get the ball thrown to you 7 times off of targets, but you only caught 4 and the other 3 were bad. So yeah, so the target stuff doesn't really matter to me. But to catch 104 balls, he's tied at number 3. 1,165 yards with 7 touchdowns and 11 yards average. That's pretty impressive. I see DeAndre Hopkins doing pretty big things with Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals this year. But at the same time, I don't know how the Cardinals will be this year, because I haven't really watched any Cardinals games. I just know everybody was saying from last year that they did not have an offensive line. So I'm hoping that the line that they did get through the draft or whatever, picked up in free agency, that they will have a great production and actually block for Kyler Murray so DeAndre Hopkins can get the ball. And with his sidekick Kirk, and Larry Fitz is still there. So him, Christian Kirk, and Larry Fitz, that's going to be a good receiver trio right there. But yeah, man, number 2 in my opinion is DeAndre Hopkins. My number 3 receiver in the league is Julio Jones. Yes, Julio Jones does not have that many touchdowns, but everybody, all I have to say is you have to also think of, he also has a number 2 receiver that could really be a number 1 receiver on his team that could go anywhere and be a number 1, who is Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones, in and out of games, he will put up big numbers if he wants to. There's nobody in the league cornerback wise that like I can say like you can just look at and be like, this game right here, they're shutting Julio Jones down. Like, really, you can't do that. He's fast, he's big, like, he's just strong, man. Like, you could tell he's in the weight room working to get better every day and stuff like that. And expect another big year from Julio Jones. As a Saints fan, yes, the Falcons are rivals, but for real, I can see Julio Jones becoming the number 1 receiver this year. I'm not going to sleep on the Falcons. A lot of people will say the Bucks are better than the Falcons because of Tom Brady and stuff like that now, but nah, man, I still got the Falcons as the second best team in our division. I still see them as a great team as long as their defense can stay healthy and their team can stay healthy. I could see them going back to the playoffs this year. My number 4 receiver, as you guys can see, is Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I haven't really watched too much of his stuff. I might go back because, on YouTube, the NFL, if you are subscribed to the NFL, they put out a lot of game day games, so it's like the whole game and stuff. So I might go back and watch some of his stuff to see how he actually played, because where I live, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers games aren't going to come on like that, but this year they will for sure. So I will be watching out for him and Mike Evans this year. But he caught 86 balls with 1,333 yards and 9 touchdowns on 15 yards average. So that means like most of the time he at least try to get like 15 yards on his catches and stuff like that. But pretty much as everybody would think would be the number 1 receiver on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as Mike Evans, this to me is showing me that right now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers number one receiver is Chris Godwin. But I know you guys will probably be like, what do you mean like that? But I mean, like, even though Mike Evans is going up against one on the best corners in the league, that is allowing Chris Godwin to get open and do whatever he wants to do, because Mike Evans is going up against the Marshawn Lattimores, the Jalen Ramseys and stuff like that. They are guarding him when he's on the field with Chris Godwin. They're not guarding Chris Godwin. The second best corner on the team is guarding him. So that's what that's showing me. I see another big season with him this year, but I don't see a too big of a season this year. People might say, man, you're just hating. No, I'm not hating. Tom Brady's arm was not as good as Jameis Winston's. Jameis has a stronger arm than Tom Brady. Anybody that watches Patriots games knows that Tom Brady really does not throw the ball dumb far anymore because of his strength and stuff like that. So to me, I really would have kept Jameis Winston, but Tom Brady is also a great pickup. But yeah, I can see another big season out of him, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like Tom Brady will more than likely just switch it up and might catch people off guard and might use O.J. Howard more than everybody else and Gronk. So yeah, my number 5, I think it is. Yes, it is. My number 5 receiver on the list is Kenny Golladay for the Detroit Lions. A lot of people don't put a lot of respect on his name. Because as you guys know, he plays for the Detroit Lions. I feel like if the Detroit Lions could go off this year with Matthew Stafford, they would be a good team. Don't be shy to look them out the way, man. I can see them coming up in the league too, and probably beating the Packers. Like, you never know. The NFL is so weird now. Like, you never know who could win the conference. So, like, I'm also not counting out the Bears this year. Even the Vikings, again, I'm not counting them out. But 65 catches. Just think of that. 65 catches. Just 65. To have 65 catches on 1,190 yards with 11 touchdowns. Now, that is fucking impressive. Now, like I said, with Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, they caught 100 balls. Like, that's impressive because that means they basically did not drop the ball when the ball was getting thrown to them. But to get targeted, probably not that much. And basically to catch all your balls with just 65 receptions with 11 touchdowns, that is pretty impressive. I feel like I might react to a Kenny Golladay highlight tape or something like that, but I also want to get better known with him too as a receiver. I feel like he's a great receiver in the league. But a lot of people won't give him his props because of the team he plays for. That's the one thing why I'm doing this top 10 in my eyes, because a lot of people are cutting people off a list that actually balled out this past year and did great at their position, but aren't given enough props because of the teams they play for. But let's get to number 6. My number 6 is Mike Evans. Mike Evans, as you guys can see, him and Chris Godwin. As you see, Chris Godwin was basically the number 1 receiver because he had more receptions. But Mike Evans, for him to have 67 catches, 1,157 yards, and 8 touchdowns, that is impressive, man. 6'5" receiver. I feel like Tom Brady will use him a lot this year, mainly as like a Megatron type of receiver. But at the same time, I can't even say that because, like I said, Tom Brady's arm is a lot different from Jameis Winston's. But Mike Evans, he is a great receiver. But all I have to say, man, when we play them this year, you're not gonna do nothing, man, because Marshawn Lattimore, whenever he's lined up against Marshawn, man, he does not do anything against Marshawn Lattimore, like, really. And I know you guys are probably like, man, you Saints fan. No, I'm serious. He really does not do anything against Marshawn Lattimore for some reason, like, which is pretty surprising. But yeah, man, I can see him having a big year this year too, because this will be like the tallest receiver Tom Brady has played with since like Randy Moss. So I can see him having another big year. Now, my seventh, right, 7, 8, yep, my seventh receiver is Tyler Lockett. A lot of people don't have him on their list either, but he's on my list. For him to be the number one option on the Seattle Seahawks as a slot receiver is pretty good. That's like how Tom Brady had Julian Edelman on the Patriots. He was the number one option. To be a number one option as a slot receiver is pretty impressive because mainly the number one receivers on the team are the outside receivers. But for him to go into that Seahawks and ball out, man, even though they got DK Metcalf in like the third round, and he balled out too, man, I could see him making a come up this year too. And I could see the Seahawks being a great team, like an amazing team this year. But to have 82 catches on 1,000 yards and 57 and 8 touchdowns, that's impressive, man. Because that means he was really getting open against like the safeties and the linebackers and stuff like that, and the nickels. But pretty impressive, man. Tyler Lockett is a great receiver, 5'10". Doesn't weigh that. He weighs a lot, but he doesn't weigh a lot. Like that's pretty he's a great receiver for real, man. Don't sleep on Tyler Lockett this year either. Now a lot of people might feel some type of way with this receiver I put on the list. This is one of my favorite receivers in the league. But that's not the reason I put him on this list. I actually put him on the list because he came back from a injury from last year. He had a great comeback season. I feel like he's one of the best receivers in the league, and that's my man Cooper Kupp. He had 94 catches on 1,161 yards and 10 touchdowns. He is the number one receiver on the Rams. A lot of people might say it's Robert Woods, but I feel like it's Cooper Kupp. Now, this might seem a little biased, but I know a lot of people out there will be like, man, but I feel like a lot of people don't give Cooper Kupp his respect is because he's a white receiver. And to me, that's not a reason not to give him his respect, man. I feel like he is a top receiver in this league, just like I feel like Adam Thielen is a top receiver in this league. I did not put Adam Thielen on this list because I looked, and for some reason I was like, man, Adam Thielen balled out, but I didn't know Adam Thielen probably missed a couple of games, so he only had 400 and some yards and 6 touchdowns, and I did not know that, or I would have had Adam Thielen on the list too. But Cooper Kupp is one of my favorite receivers in this league. He's great production wise. The only thing bad about Cooper Kupp is he's just a little he's slow, but he can get open and stuff like that. But Cooper Kupp, he's a monster, like a monster to me in this league as a receiver. So don't sleep on Cooper Kupp this year, and I damn sure I'm not sleeping on the Rams. A lot of people don't have the Rams making the playoffs. I'm actually, after this video I drop, I'm going to actually put my top 6 teams that I feel like in the NFC will make it and in the AFC will make it. And a lot of people might say I'm biased or whatever, but I have the Rams going to the playoffs this year. But yeah, Cooper Kupp is my 8th best receiver. Keenan Allen, this right here is like, if you want to say Devontae Adams should have been in this list, I say Keenan Allen should have been in this list, man. Because if you look at the top receivers who have the best route running, you will put it between Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, and Devontae Adams. But to me, the best route runner and the best slept on receiver is Keenan Allen, man. 104 catches. My bad, guys. Let me rephrase that. On 1,199 yards and 6 touchdowns is pretty impressive. I feel like it was like a let-off season because their defense was hurt. So it was like the offense, you know how when the defense be hurt and then the offense feels like they're not going to make it to the playoffs. So it's like, forget it. I felt like that's how it was with Phillip Rivers. And at the same time, I felt like Phillip Rivers already knew he was leaving. But at the same time, he was like, let me get my man Keenan Allen the ball sometimes and let him get his catches and stuff like that. I feel like Keenan Allen will have a big season this year, man. With either quarterback between Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert, he's going to have a big season this year. But yeah, man, he is one of my favorite receivers in this league too, between him and Cooper Kupp. Now, then my last receiver on this list, a lot of people have been leaving him off of the list for some reason, and I don't understand why. He was just a Pro Bowler this past season, and he balled out this season. Like I've been saying since the beginning, I feel like people are leaving off certain receivers because of their team records and stuff like that, which should not count against the receiver. You're talking about who's the best receivers in the league, and you should look at the stats and their production of what they did for the team that past season, and not with like what their team did. That's why I left Tyreek Hill off of this list, because Tyreek Hill did not beat any of these receivers I put on this list in yards or touchdowns really like that. And Tyreek Hill is not the best receiver on his team. It's Travis Kelce, and he's a tight end. But Courtland Sutton, he's my last receiver, man. I want to see a big season from him again this year, man. I'm going to watch some of the Denver Broncos games this year because I feel like they have one of the best receiver duos that are young and coming up in this league, because they just picked up Jerry Jeudy. I feel like he will have a great season this year too. Courtland Sutton, man, like I said, 72 catches on 1,112 yards and 6 touchdowns is pretty impressive. I think this was like his second season in the league. And for him to do that and to make the Pro Bowl his second season, that's great. Coming out of SMU, man. SMU, I remember watching his college highlights all the time, man. Like, he was a great receiver at SMU. But yeah, man, this right here was my top 10 list. If you guys feel any type of way, you just feel that type of way, because I don't, because this is my top 10. This is my opinion. If you have a top 10 list and you like football, man, drop your top 10 down low of your top 10 receivers in the league. I won't say anything bad. I would just like it. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, man, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. But your boy, the one and only Ghetto Casper, is out.